Imagine waking up every morning with the heavy weight of fear and anxiety pressing against your chest. It could be the fear of losing something you love, the anxiety of not being good enough, or the dread of a future you cannot control. In our modern world, these feelings have become constant companions for so many people. But here is the truth: the emotions you experience are not unique to this century. Over 2,000 years ago, the ancient Stoic philosophers faced the same inner storms. They may not have lived with social media or financial markets or deadlines, but they knew what it meant to be human, to wake up each day with uncertainty, and to battle the quiet wars inside their minds. The Stoics believed that fear and anxiety come from one simple source: trying to control the uncontrollable. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, often reminded himself that most of what happens in life is beyond our power. He wrote that our minds are disturbed not by events themselves, but by our opinions of them. That means the root of your fear is not the situation but the story you tell yourself about it. Epictetus, another great Stoic thinker, taught his students to divide life into two categories: what is within your control and what is not. Fear thrives when we blur these lines, when we fight against things that no effort of ours can ever change. So, what is this ancient secret to overcoming fear and anxiety? It begins with acceptance, radical, almost shocking acceptance. This does not mean passive resignation or giving up. It means seeing the world as it is, not as you wish it to be, and understanding your place within it. Picture a sailor in a storm. The waves are fierce, the wind is merciless, and the boat creaks under the pressure. The sailor cannot control the storm. He cannot demand the sea to be calm. But what can he do? He can adjust his sails, steady his hands on the ropes, and use his skill to navigate through chaos. That is what the Stoics teach. When life throws a storm at you, fear tells you to panic, but wisdom tells you to steer. In this journey of overcoming fear, we need to examine where it truly lives. Fear is born in the mind. You might think it comes from external events, losing your job, facing illness, or being judged by others, but those are only triggers. The real battlefield is inside you. Seneca once said that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many nights have you stayed awake imagining the worst-case scenario? How many times has your heart raced at possibilities that never actually happened? Fear feeds on your thoughts, on your projections into the future, on your inability to stay anchored in the present moment. Here is where Stoic practice becomes more than just philosophy. It turns into a daily exercise, a way of training the mind to break free from fear's grip. Start with this practice. Each morning, take a quiet moment to list everything that is truly within your control. Your thoughts, your actions, your choices, your attitude. These are your domain. Then, remind yourself of everything that is not. The opinions of others, the outcome of events, the passing of time, the inevitability of death. As Epictetus would say, those are not your concern. When you separate the two, you take away fear's power. This is not easy. Your mind will fight back. It will tell you that you can control more than you actually can. It will whisper, if only I do everything right, everything will turn out the way I want. But life does not work like that, and the Stoics knew it. They learned to make peace with the unknown. They learned to focus their energy on what they could change, and in doing so, they found a strange and unshakable freedom. Imagine applying this to your own life. Imagine facing your biggest fear, losing your job, being judged, failing, and instead of spiraling into panic, you pause. You remind yourself, I cannot control the outcome, but I can control how I show up. I can choose courage. I can choose calm. In that moment, you are no longer a victim of your fear. You are the sailor steering through the storm. This ancient secret is not hidden in some old manuscript. It is alive and breathing in every moment you decide to let go of what you cannot control and take charge of what you can. Overcoming fear and anxiety is not about eliminating them. They are part of being human. It is about changing your relationship with them, seeing them as signals to guide your growth instead of chains that hold you back. And as we move forward in this exploration, we will uncover more of the tools the Stoics used to calm their restless hearts and sharpen their minds. These tools are not just for philosophers in marble halls. They are for you, right now, living in this chaotic and unpredictable world. So stay with me as we journey deeper into this ancient wisdom and learn how to transform fear into strength and anxiety into action. Let us go deeper into this journey. If the first step to overcoming fear and anxiety is radical acceptance, the second is learning how to train your perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." At first glance, this seems simple, but it is an art that requires daily practice. Perception is the lens through which you view the world, and when fear grips you, that lens becomes clouded. Every challenge feels like a disaster. Every uncertainty feels like doom. But what if you could clean that lens? What if you could see things as they really are, not as your fear paints them? The Stoics used a powerful tool for this, reframing. They challenged themselves to take situations that seemed terrifying or overwhelming and reinterpret them in ways that gave them strength. Epictetus taught his students to pause when confronted by fear and ask, "What is this event, really? Is it truly harmful, or is it only my judgment that makes it so?" Imagine you are afraid of losing your job. The fear builds stories in your head, "I'll be ruined. I'll never find work again." But the Stoic response is different. It asks, is it the job loss itself that is terrifying, or my belief that I cannot survive it? Once you separate the facts from your fearful interpretation, you regain power. Reframing turns fear into fuel. Seneca often reminded his readers that challenges are opportunities for virtue. He wrote that a person cannot become resilient without facing trials. Just like a soldier cannot become brave without battle, or a sailor cannot learn skill without storms, you cannot grow into your full strength without facing what scares you. This idea changes the entire narrative of fear. Instead of running from it, you walk toward it, knowing that on the other side lies growth. Now let's turn to a practice you can apply immediately. When fear or anxiety strikes, stop and write it down. Describe the event or thought causing your distress in the simplest terms, as if you were explaining it to a child. Remove all the dramatic language. For instance, instead of writing, "My life will be over if I fail this exam," write, "I might not pass this test." Then, write out what is within your control in this situation. Maybe it's studying more effectively, seeking help, or managing your time. Finally, write what is outside your control, the grading system, the opinions of others, or the difficulty of the test. This exercise may seem small, but it is a mental reset. It slows down the racing mind and brings you back to reality. The Stoics also used visualization to prepare for fear. Marcus Aurelius often practiced what is called premeditation malorum, the premeditation of evils. Each morning, he imagined the difficulties he might face, insults, illness, betrayal, or loss. This was not pessimism. It was training. When those events happened, he would not be shocked. He had already rehearsed them in his mind, stripping them of their power to terrify. Try this yourself. In a quiet moment, imagine the worst-case scenario of your fear. Not in an emotional way, but as an observer. Walk through it logically. See yourself surviving it. This takes the monster out from under the bed and puts it in the light, where it is far less frightening. Another cornerstone of Stoic practice is learning to live in the present. Anxiety thrives in the future, in the endless what-ifs that your mind creates. Seneca said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you find yourself spiraling about tomorrow, bring your attention back to this moment. What can you do right now? This breath. This action. This choice. Fear loses its grip when you shrink your focus to the present. Consider also how much of your fear is tied to other people's opinions. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the judgments of others are fleeting and beyond his control. How often do you let imagined criticism or disapproval feed your anxiety? This is where the Stoics urge you to build an inner fortress, a mind so grounded in its values that the noise of the outside world cannot shake it. As you integrate these practices, reframing, writing, visualization, and present moment focus, you begin to feel a shift. Fear will not disappear. It is a natural part of being alive. But it will no longer dominate you. You will start to see it as a teacher rather than a tyrant. Each fear becomes an invitation to grow, to strengthen your character, to become a little more unshakable. The Stoics knew that fear is part of the human experience, but they refused to let it dictate their lives. They remind us that you cannot always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your response. That choice, moment by moment, is the key to breaking free from the chains of fear and anxiety. This is only the beginning of our exploration. In the next part, we will go deeper into how Stoic rituals and daily habits can transform your mental state and help you walk through life with greater courage and calm. If the previous part taught us to reshape how we see fear, now we take the next step, building a daily practice that trains the mind to stay grounded even when storms come. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations for anyone else. He wrote them for himself, as reminders, as an anchor for his mind in times of turmoil. This is one of the most profound lessons of Stoicism. To overcome fear and anxiety, you need consistent rituals that fortify your inner world. The first practice is morning reflection. Marcus often began his day by preparing himself for the challenges ahead. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they don't know good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I understand that they can't harm me." This ritual is powerful because it sets realistic expectations. Instead of hoping for a perfect day, you anticipate difficulties. Fear often arises when life doesn't match our expectations. By starting your day like a Stoic, you remove the element of surprise. The second practice is evening journaling. Seneca suggested reviewing each day like a judge reviewing a case. Ask yourself, what did I fear today? How did I respond? Did I let anxiety control me, or did I act with courage? This is not about harsh self-criticism. It is about observing your thoughts and actions with honesty, like a scientist studying data. Over time, this practice reveals patterns. You start to notice what triggers your fear and how you can respond differently. Another essential ritual is controlled exposure to discomfort. Epictetus taught his students that avoiding discomfort only makes fear grow. "Difficulties show what men are," he said. Therefore, when a difficulty arises, remember that God, like a trainer, has matched you with a rough young man. Instead of running from challenges, the Stoics leaned into them. You can practice this by intentionally doing small, uncomfortable things, taking a cold shower, speaking up in a meeting, or delaying a comfort you crave. Each act builds resilience. When you willingly face discomfort, you prove to yourself that fear does not own you. Let's add another exercise, the practice of view from above. This was a visualization used by Stoics to gain perspective. Imagine rising above your current situation, like a bird flying over your city, then higher until you see your country, your continent, the entire earth. From this vantage point, your problems shrink. That presentation you are nervous about, that social anxiety you feel, they seem less monumental when placed in the vastness of existence. Marcus Aurelius often used this technique to calm his mind. When you feel trapped in fear, try this exercise. It reminds you that life is bigger than this moment, and you are only a small but meaningful part of a grand whole. Also, consider the role of gratitude. Fear thrives in scarcity, in the feeling that we don't have enough, that disaster is around the corner. Gratitude is the antidote. Each day, write down 3 things you are thankful for. They don't have to be grand. It could be a conversation, a meal, a moment of quiet. Gratitude anchors you in what is good and real, pulling you out of the spiral of what if. Seneca put it beautifully, He is a great man who uses earthenware as if it were silver, and he is equally great who uses silver as if it were earthenware. In other words, value what you have without becoming a slave to it. Fear and anxiety often come from our desire to control the uncontrollable. The Stoics addressed this head-on with one of their most important teachings, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not. You cannot control the opinions of others, the economy, or the weather. But you can control your thoughts, your actions, your choices." The next time fear overwhelms you, pause and ask, what part of this is within my control? Redirect your energy there, and release the rest. One more ritual worth adopting is meditative breathing. The Stoics may not have called it mindfulness, but they practiced deep awareness. When you feel fear tightening your chest, take a slow breath in, hold it, and release. Count as you breathe. This simple act grounds you in your body and interrupts the cycle of panic. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to return to the present moment, confine yourself to the present. Breathing is one of the most immediate ways to do that. Together, these daily habits, morning reflection, evening journaling, controlled discomfort, gratitude, the view from above, and mindful breathing, create a shield for the mind. They will not make fear disappear, but they will make you stronger than your fear. In the next part, we will explore how Stoics dealt with some of the most primal fears, death, loss, and uncertainty, and how reframing these experiences can bring profound peace. If the previous part taught us to reshape how we see fear, now we take the next step, building a daily practice that trains the mind to stay grounded even when storms come. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations for anyone else. He wrote them for himself, as reminders, as an anchor for his mind in times of turmoil. This is one of the most profound lessons of Stoicism. To overcome fear and anxiety, you need consistent rituals that fortify your inner world. The first practice is morning reflection. Marcus often began his day by preparing himself for the challenges ahead. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they don't know good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I understand that they can't harm me." This ritual is powerful because it sets realistic expectations. Instead of hoping for a perfect day, you anticipate difficulties. Fear often arises when life doesn't match our expectations. By starting your day like a Stoic, you remove the element of surprise. The second practice is evening journaling. Seneca suggested reviewing each day like a judge reviewing a case. Ask yourself, what did I fear today? How did I respond? Did I let anxiety control me, or did I act with courage? This is not about harsh self-criticism. It is about observing your thoughts and actions with honesty, like a scientist studying data. Over time, this practice reveals patterns. You start to notice what triggers your fear and how you can respond differently. Another essential ritual is controlled exposure to discomfort. Epictetus taught his students that avoiding discomfort only makes fear grow. "Difficulties show what men are," he said. Therefore, when a difficulty arises, remember that God, like a trainer, has matched you with a rough young man. Instead of running from challenges, the Stoics leaned into them. You can practice this by intentionally doing small, uncomfortable things, taking a cold shower, speaking up in a meeting, or delaying a comfort you crave. Each act builds resilience. When you willingly face discomfort, you prove to yourself that fear does not own you. Let's add another exercise, the practice of view from above. This was a visualization used by Stoics to gain perspective. Imagine rising above your current situation, like a bird flying over your city, then higher until you see your country, your continent, the entire earth. From this vantage point, your problems shrink. That presentation you are nervous about, that social anxiety you feel, they seem less monumental when placed in the vastness of existence. Marcus Aurelius often used this technique to calm his mind. When you feel trapped in fear, try this exercise. It reminds you that life is bigger than this moment, and you are only a small but meaningful part of a grand whole. Also, consider the role of gratitude. Fear thrives in scarcity, in the feeling that we don't have enough, that disaster is around the corner. Gratitude is the antidote. Each day, write down 3 things you are thankful for. They don't have to be grand. It could be a conversation, a meal, a moment of quiet. Gratitude anchors you in what is good and real, pulling you out of the spiral of what if. Seneca put it beautifully: he is a great man who uses earthenware as if it were silver, and he is equally great who uses silver as if it were earthenware. In other words, value what you have without becoming a slave to it. Fear and anxiety often come from our desire to control the uncontrollable. The Stoics addressed this head-on with one of their most important teachings, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." You cannot control the opinions of others, the economy, or the weather. But you can control your thoughts, your actions, your choices. The next time fear overwhelms you, pause and ask, what part of this is within my control? Redirect your energy there, and release the rest. One more ritual worth adopting is meditative breathing. The Stoics may not have called it mindfulness, but they practiced deep awareness. When you feel fear tightening your chest, take a slow breath in, hold it, and release. Count as you breathe. This simple act grounds you in your body and interrupts the cycle of panic. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to return to the present moment, confine yourself to the present. Breathing is one of the most immediate ways to do that. Together, these daily habits, morning reflection, evening journaling, controlled discomfort, gratitude, the view from above, and mindful breathing, create a shield for the mind. They will not make fear disappear, but they will make you stronger than your fear. In the next part, we will explore how Stoics dealt with some of the most primal fears, death, loss, and uncertainty, and how reframing these experiences can bring profound peace. Now that we've explored the deeper philosophical roots of fear, it's time to bring this wisdom into our everyday lives. Philosophy means nothing if it stays only in books. The Stoics were practical people. They believed that transformation comes from daily training, from exercises that slowly reshape the mind. So in this part, we will focus on simple but powerful practices to overcome fear and anxiety, drawn directly from Stoic thought. The first exercise is the practice of premeditation, or what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. This means visualizing potential hardships before they happen. But do not confuse this with pessimism. You are not dwelling on disaster. Instead, you are training yourself to face it. For example, if you fear losing your job, sit down in a quiet place and imagine what would happen if it came true. Feel the discomfort. See yourself going through the difficult days. And then ask, what could I do? Could I find new work? Could I downsize my life? Could I rebuild? Almost always, you will discover that you are more resilient than you thought. This practice reduces the sting of fear because it takes away the element of surprise. When challenges come, you will already have faced them in your mind. The second exercise is separating what is within your control from what is not. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some are not." Write this down on a piece of paper. Divide the page into 2 columns. In one column, write what is fully in your control, your words, your actions, your responses. In the other, write what is not, the opinions of others, external events, outcomes you cannot fully shape. When fear arises, go to this page. Ask yourself, am I pouring energy into something I cannot control? If so, withdraw it. Place your focus on what you can influence. This simple act reduces anxiety more than you might imagine, because fear often grows in the soil of helplessness. The third exercise is practicing voluntary discomfort. The Stoics believe that fear often comes from over-attachment to comfort. Seneca would sleep on a hard floor for a few nights or eat very simple meals to remind himself that he could endure far worse than his mind imagined. Try this for yourself. Spend a day without one of your usual comforts. Walk in the cold without a heavy coat. Skip a meal. Disconnect from your phone. When you do these small acts, you teach your mind a valuable lesson: I can survive discomfort. The more you train this muscle, the less fear will dominate you. The fourth exercise is journaling. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not for anyone else but for himself. Each night, write about your fears. Where did they come from today? Were they real or imagined? Did they lead you to act against your values? Journaling brings clarity. It untangles the messy knots of anxiety, turning them into words you can examine. Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to see the illusions behind your fears. The fifth exercise is adopting the view from above. Picture yourself high above the earth, looking down. Your life is one thread in the vast tapestry of existence. That meeting you are worried about, that argument, that looming deadline, they shrink when seen in this larger frame. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that everything is temporary. All is ephemeral, he wrote, both the remembered and the remembering. This perspective doesn't erase fear, but it places it in its proper scale. The sixth exercise is gratitude. Fear and anxiety often arise from what we lack, but gratitude roots us in what we already have. Each morning, list 3 things you are thankful for. Make them specific. The smell of coffee. A conversation with a friend. The way sunlight fell through your window. This simple act shifts your attention away from fear and toward abundance. Gratitude does not eliminate problems, but it strengthens you to face them. And finally, the seventh exercise is practicing daily reflection on mortality, or memento mori. This sounds heavy, but it is profoundly freeing. Each day, remind yourself, I could leave life at any moment. Use this as fuel, not despair. Suddenly, the fear of embarrassment, rejection, or failure seems smaller. You realize that most of what terrifies you doesn't truly matter in the brief span of your existence. This awareness pushes you to live fully, with courage, rather than hiding from fear. When you incorporate these exercises into your daily life, you start building a kind of mental armor. Fear does not disappear, but it loses its power over you. You move through life with calmness and purpose, ready for whatever comes. In the next part, we will look at how these practices can transform not only your inner world but also your relationships, work, and overall approach to living. Let us now move from the inner exercises of the Stoics to how these teachings can transform our relationships and interactions with others. Fear and anxiety often grow in the soil of human connection. We fear rejection, judgment, losing those we love, or failing in front of others. The Stoics understood this well. They lived in bustling cities, served as emperors, teachers, and advisors. They knew that the greatest challenges to tranquility often come from dealing with people. But they also knew that the same wisdom that quiets the inner storm can guide us toward peaceful and courageous relationships. The first way to apply Stoic practice to relationships is by changing how we view the opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius said, I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. Pause for a moment. How much of your anxiety comes from worrying about what others think? A raised eyebrow at a meeting, a harsh comment on social media, a disagreement with someone close to you, these can send waves of fear through us. The Stoics teach us to reverse this pattern. Their advice is simple yet radical: give your own judgment more weight than that of strangers. When you act according to your values, the opinions of others lose their sharp edge. The second application is to practice what Epictetus called role ethics. This means that in every relationship, you ask yourself, what is my role here? As a parent, a friend, a coworker, a citizen, what is the right way for me to act in this role? When you focus on fulfilling your role with integrity, fear of judgment begins to fade. You are no longer acting to please others but to live in alignment with your nature and duties. This clarity quiets the inner noise. The third practice is emotional distancing, not coldness. but perspective. When someone criticizes you or acts unfairly, the Stoics suggest pausing before reacting. Marcus advised himself, when another blames you or hates you, or people voice similar criticisms, go to their souls, penetrate inside and see what kind of people they are. You will realize that there is no need to be racked with anxiety that they hold any particular opinion about you. In other words, step back. See the situation as if you are watching a play. Most of the time, others' actions have more to do with their struggles than with your worth. This mental distance softens the sting of conflict. The fourth application is to bring the practice of premeditation into your social world. Before entering a challenging situation, a difficult conversation, a public presentation, an important meeting, imagine what could go wrong. People may interrupt you. Someone may mock your ideas. You might stumble over your words. Now see yourself enduring it with calm. Accept it as part of the experience. This mental rehearsal reduces the element of surprise and turns fear into readiness. The fifth application is to practice radical acceptance of others as they are. Epictetus taught that we must accept that other people act according to their own understanding, their own beliefs, and their own nature. When we expect others to be perfect or to behave exactly as we wish, we set ourselves up for disappointment and resentment. Instead, remind yourself, this person is acting according to their own mind, just as I do. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or injustice, but it does mean reducing the suffering caused by unrealistic expectations. The sixth application is to cultivate compassion. Fear often makes us defensive, closed off. But Marcus Aurelius urged himself to remember that every person he meets is his fellow human, sharing the same struggles of mortality, pain, and imperfection. When you view others through this lens of shared humanity, their harshness loses its power to wound you deeply. Compassion does not erase boundaries, but it dissolves much of the fear that poisons relationships. Finally, the seventh application is practicing gratitude for the people in your life. Even those who challenge you can be your teachers. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That critical coworker. They are teaching you patience. That demanding relative. They are showing you the limits of your tolerance and the places where you can grow. Fear shrinks when we see relationships not as threats but as opportunities to strengthen our character. When you begin to apply these principles, you notice a shift. The fear of judgment softens. The anxiety of rejection loses its grip. Your interactions become more grounded, less reactive. The same tools that help you manage your inner fears now guide you in the complex dance of human connection. In the next part, we will explore how these Stoic practices can transform our approach to work, goals, and the pursuit of success, turning fear into fuel for action rather than a barrier to progress. Now let us take the wisdom we have gathered about fear and anxiety and turn our attention to the realm of work, ambition, and the pursuit of success. For many of us, some of our deepest fears are tied to these areas. We fear failure. We fear not being good enough. We fear what others will say if we do not meet their expectations. And sometimes, even when we succeed, we fear losing what we have gained. The Stoics, though they lived in a different time, faced these same human struggles. Their lessons on approaching our work and goals with courage and serenity remain just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. The first principle we must remember is that our work is not who we are. Epictetus taught that our worth lies not in our titles, our wealth, or our reputation, but in our character and our ability to live in harmony with reason and virtue. This is a revolutionary idea in a world that often defines us by what we produce. It invites us to approach our work not as a way to prove our value but as a field in which to practice virtue, diligence, patience, courage, and fairness. When you shift your focus from results to the integrity of your effort, much of the fear of failure loses its grip. The second principle is detachment from outcomes. This is perhaps one of the hardest lessons for us to learn. We set goals, we dream big, and we want to control what happens. But Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that outcomes are not fully in his control. "Do your work well," he wrote, without attachment to the fruits of it. This does not mean giving up on success. It means giving your best effort while understanding that the final result depends on factors far beyond your reach: fortune, timing, the actions of others. Anxiety fades when you stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world. The third principle is to transform fear of failure into preparation. Seneca often wrote about the power of premeditation malorum, rehearsing in your mind the difficulties you might face. Instead of ignoring your fears about work, failing a presentation, losing a job, making a costly mistake, bring them into the light. Picture them. Imagine how you would respond with calm and strength. This mental practice does not make the challenges disappear, but it makes them familiar, and familiarity diminishes fear. The fourth principle is to redefine success. The Stoics did not see success as wealth or fame. Success, for them, was living in accordance with virtue. Did you act with integrity today? Did you show courage when it was easier to hide? Did you treat others with fairness and respect? If so, you succeeded, regardless of the praise or criticism you received. This redefinition of success can bring extraordinary peace to those trapped in the anxiety of achievement. The fifth principle is to embrace failure as a teacher. The impediment to action advances action, Marcus wrote. What stands in the way becomes the way. Failure is not a sign that you are inadequate, but a sign that you are learning, evolving, and testing your limits. Instead of fearing failure, use it as a compass pointing you toward the areas where you can grow stronger. This reframing transforms failure from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. The sixth principle is to set boundaries around your ambition. The Stoics warned against the endless pursuit of more money, more recognition, more accomplishments. Seneca reminded his readers that endless striving only feeds anxiety. Ask yourself, how much is enough? When you define your own standard for a good life, rather than chasing society's moving target, you liberate yourself from the exhausting cycle of comparison and fear. The seventh principle is to approach every task, no matter how small, with full presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what is necessary, and do it with your whole heart." Fear often grows when we obsess over the future, the big goal, the final outcome. But when you bring your attention fully to the present task, writing the next sentence, preparing for the next meeting, making the next call, fear shrinks. You are no longer drowning in the enormity of what could happen. You are simply doing the work before you, one step at a time. When you bring these principles into your work and ambitions, you notice a profound shift. Your job stops being a battlefield of anxiety and becomes a field of practice. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to exercise courage. Every setback becomes an invitation to learn. And every success becomes simply another step on the lifelong journey of becoming the person you are meant to be. In the next part, we will dive deeper into one of the most transformative Stoic practices, training the mind to stay grounded in the present, the very antidote to the anxious mind that drifts into fearful futures and unchangeable pasts. Now let us turn to one of the most powerful tools in the Stoic arsenal for overcoming fear and anxiety, the practice of presence, or as we might call it today, Stoic mindfulness. Though the Stoics did not use this exact word, their writings are filled with teachings that invite us to anchor ourselves in the here and now, to free our minds from the illusions of the past and the anxieties of the future. Marcus Aurelius said, "Confine yourself to the present." In this simple instruction lies an antidote to much of the fear that torments us. When fear takes hold, where is it usually directed? Rarely toward what is happening right now. More often, our fear is rooted in what might happen, a catastrophe imagined in the future, or what has already happened, a past mistake that we endlessly relive. These are ghosts, projections of the mind. They feel real, but they are illusions. The present, on the other hand, is solid ground. In this moment, here and now, you are alive, breathing, capable. By bringing yourself back to the present, you disarm fear of its most powerful weapon, its ability to make you live in a time that does not exist. The first exercise for cultivating this presence is what Marcus Aurelius practiced daily, reminding yourself that this moment is enough. He wrote, "Every hour, resolve as a Roman and a man to do what lies before you with perfect and simple dignity. This means focusing only on what you can do now. When you wake up, instead of drowning in the weight of the entire day, ask yourself, what is the next right thing? Then do it. By breaking life down into these small, manageable actions, you strip fear of its overwhelming size. The second exercise is to name your fears. Seneca recommended confronting your fears directly rather than letting them fester in the shadows. When anxiety rises, pause and ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid of right now? Say it clearly. Write it down. Often, naming a fear diminishes its power. It turns it from a monstrous fog into something specific and, therefore, something you can address. The third exercise is what the Stoics called viewing from above. This practice invites you to imagine rising above your life and looking at it as a whole, not just this anxious moment, but the entire arc of your existence. Marcus often did this, reflecting on how small our troubles are when viewed from the perspective of the cosmos. Your fear about an upcoming conversation, a delayed payment, or a change in plans shrinks when you see it as one tiny ripple in the vast ocean of your life. The fourth exercise is grounding yourself in your senses. The Stoics were not abstract philosophers detached from the body. They valued practical ways to bring the mind back to the present. When fear floods you, take a moment to notice your breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Observe what you see, hear, and touch. Anchoring yourself in these physical sensations brings you back from the anxious projections of the mind to the safety of the present moment. The fifth exercise is journaling, a practice central to the Stoic tradition. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is essentially his private journal, a place where he processed his fears, his failures, and his hopes. When you put your thoughts on paper, you create distance between yourself and your anxiety. Your fears are no longer swirling endlessly in your head. They are contained, examined, and made manageable. The sixth exercise is to limit your mental clutter. Epictetus warned against filling the mind with unnecessary worries. Ask yourself, is this fear about something I can control? If not, let it go. If yes, decide on a small step you can take now and then release the rest. This disciplined sorting of thoughts is a key Stoic habit that keeps the mind clear and free from needless anxiety. Practicing presence in these ways does not mean ignoring the past or future entirely. It means refusing to let them dominate you. The past becomes a teacher, not a prison. The future becomes a place of possibility, not a source of dread. And the present becomes your arena, the only place where you can live, act, and grow. In this practice of mindful presence, you discover a deep truth: fear cannot live where you are fully grounded in now. It dissolves like mist under the light of awareness. In the next part, we will explore the Stoic understanding of courage, not the absence of fear, but the strength to act in spite of it, and how you can apply it to your daily life. Let us now explore one of the deepest lessons the Stoics offered about fear, that the true antidote to it is courage. Courage, as they understood it, was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act rightly despite fear. Fear will always be part of life. It arises in the face of uncertainty, in the moments when we sense our lack of control. But the Stoics taught that what defines a wise person is not whether they feel fear, but what they do next. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. This may sound harsh, but it was his way of reminding himself that life will test us and that our task is not to wish away these tests but to meet them with dignity. This is courage, facing what is difficult without being paralyzed. The first exercise in developing this courage is reframing your challenges. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, every obstacle, every fearful situation, is an opportunity to grow stronger. Instead of seeing fear as a sign to retreat, see it as an invitation to step forward. The meeting you are anxious about is a chance to practice speaking with clarity. The uncertain future is a chance to practice adaptability. The second exercise is practicing voluntary discomfort. Seneca often advised people to occasionally live as if they had less than they actually did. He suggested sleeping on the floor, eating simple food, wearing plain clothing, and asking yourself, is this what I feared? This practice builds resilience. When you deliberately choose discomfort, you show yourself that you can survive without the comforts and securities you cling to, and in doing so, you shrink fear's hold on your life. The third exercise is action in small steps. Epictetus said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. Courage is often built not in grand gestures but in small, deliberate actions. If you fear speaking up in a group, start by sharing one thought. If you fear failure, begin a project knowing it might not succeed, but do it anyway. Each small step teaches your mind that fear is not a wall but a doorway you can walk through. The fourth exercise is separating what is within your power from what is not. Fear often grows because we try to control what is uncontrollable. Epictetus constantly reminded his students, some things are up to us, and some are not. If you are afraid of being judged by others, recognize that their opinions are beyond your power. What you can control is your integrity, your words, and your actions. By focusing on what is yours to manage, you remove the weight of trying to control the uncontrollable. The fifth exercise is embodying your values. Fear loses much of its power when you act from a place of principle. Ask yourself, what do I value more than my comfort? What matters more than avoiding this fear? Maybe it is truth, justice, kindness, or wisdom. When your actions are guided by something greater than your fear, courage becomes easier. Marcus Aurelius believed that living in harmony with virtue was the highest form of freedom, and this included freedom from the chains of fear. The sixth exercise is preparing your mind for challenges before they arrive. The Stoics called this premeditation malorum, premeditation of evils. Each morning, imagine the difficulties you might face. A rude colleague. A delayed plan. A sudden change. Prepare for them in your mind so that when they happen, you are not surprised or crushed by them. Instead, you can say, I knew this might come. And I am ready. This preparation transforms fear into readiness. The seventh exercise is practicing gratitude in the face of fear. Gratitude may seem unrelated to courage, but it shifts your perspective. When you acknowledge what you already have, health, relationships, opportunities, you weaken fear's grip. It reminds you that even if you lose something, your life still holds meaning and value. Courage, the Stoics taught, is not loud or flashy. It is steady, grounded, and deeply personal. It is the quiet decision to face the storm instead of running from it. It is showing up when you would rather hide. It is choosing action over paralysis. In the final part, we will bring all of these practices together: presence, reframing, voluntary discomfort, gratitude, and more, to outline a Stoic roadmap for transforming fear into a powerful ally in your journey toward freedom. As we reach the conclusion of this journey through Stoic wisdom, let us pause to reflect on everything we have uncovered. Fear and anxiety, those relentless shadows that follow us through life, are not enemies to be eradicated. They are signals. They are teachers. And in the eyes of the Stoics, they are opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and freer. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is the heart of overcoming fear, recognizing that fear only truly exists in the judgments we attach to what happens, not in the events themselves. When you understand this, you reclaim your power. Now, let us draw together the lessons we have explored and turn them into a practical roadmap. The first step is presence. Fear grows in the dark corners of the mind, in the what-ifs of tomorrow and the regrets of yesterday. Bring yourself to this moment. As Marcus said, confine yourself to the present. Right now, you are breathing. Right now, you are safe. Right now, you have everything you need to act with courage. The second step is reframing obstacles. Epictetus taught that events are not good or bad, only our interpretations make them so. What you fear can become the very thing that makes you stronger. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way, wrote Marcus. When fear whispers, avoid this. Try saying, here lies my opportunity. The third step is voluntary discomfort. Practice enduring what you fear in small, controlled doses. Sleep on the floor once in a while. Take a cold shower. Give up a luxury for a week. Seneca encouraged this to remind us that life without comfort is survivable, that we are stronger than our fears of deprivation. The fourth step is living by values. When fear overwhelms you, return to your principles. Ask yourself, what do I value more than my comfort? What is worth facing fear for? When your actions align with your values, fear cannot control you. Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Let this be your guide. The fifth step is premeditation. Each morning, imagine what could go wrong and decide how you will face it with dignity. This Stoic exercise, premeditatio malorum, makes fear manageable. When the unexpected comes, you will not be paralyzed. You will be ready. The sixth step is gratitude. Fear shrinks when gratitude expands. Make it a daily ritual to name what you are thankful for. Even in uncertainty, you can be grateful for your breath, your mind, your capacity to grow. Seneca reminded us, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. Gratitude turns adversity into a proving ground. And finally, the seventh step is daily courage. Courage is not about grand, heroic acts. It is about the quiet decision to take one step forward despite trembling knees. Speak up in that meeting. Make that phone call. Try that thing you've been avoiding. Courage grows when you use it. The ancient Stoics would tell us that a life without fear is not possible, nor should it be. Fear reminds us that we care. But when we meet fear with reason, with virtue, and with deliberate action, it loses its power to control us. So the next time you feel that familiar weight in your chest, take a breath. Stand still. Ask yourself, what is within my power right now? And then do that. One step. One choice. One act of courage. This is the Stoic way. This is how you turn fear into freedom. If this message resonates with you, share in the comments what fears you are working to overcome. Your story may inspire someone else who needs courage today. And if you found value in these lessons, share this video so that more people can discover the power of Stoic wisdom. Thank you for walking this path with me. Together, let us continue to seek wisdom, cultivate courage, and live a life that no fear can shake.